Hi, love bugs. Welcome to another episode of Girls Night with Carley Doxtator. This is the very first video recorded episode, so that's really exciting. Everybody give me a round of applause, please, because I feel like that's a really big step, especially for someone like me who admittedly has some fear around being seen, right? Putting yourself on video, talking about a podcast, that's one of the most ways that you can be seen, at least in the podcast world, right? So I'm very excited for this episode. I think I would be remiss if I did not kind of address the fact that it has been almost a year, about a year since the last time that I uploaded an episode. And so I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. And it actually does kind of relate to the topic of this episode, actually. So the reason I just needed, I was going through a time where I had all of these things, all of these emotional things coming up for me. And they all kind of came to a peak to the point where I felt very overwhelmed. I felt like I was not able to continue doing this podcast and showing up as my best self, right? Just because I was at a point where I was in a lot of pain and I was not able to separate that from the advice that I was giving on the podcast, on the topics that I was talking about on the podcast. And I knew that. So I wanted to make sure that I was showing up as my best self for you guys. And I didn't want to exacerbate that pain, right? I didn't want to spread that pain around just because I was in a painful state myself. So I had a lot of work that I needed to do. I honestly avoided it for a little while because it's easier to avoid it sometimes than to actually do it. As we all probably know, that's why we listen to this podcast. That's why we go to therapy. That's why we get coaching, to help us through those things and to help us learn those tools. So all that to say that I'm right there in it with you too, right? Like, I still have things that I have to work through, that I have to navigate and sift through in order to get to the next layer, the next level. Um, but that's essentially why I just felt like I was not in a really good place myself, and I did not want to put that onto you guys as well. So here we are a year later. I have done a lot of work. If you talk to my coaches, I have done a lot of work. I've been going through it emotionally. I've been going through the emotional minefield, but here we are. Hi, everyone. Life can get a little crazy, so let's talk about it. If you're ready to dive deeper, talk about what really matters, and feel a little more empowered, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carley Doxtator. I'm a life coach, baker, dog mom of two, and you're always there for you, gal pal. And I'm so excited to have you join me. So grab your fuzzy socks, put on your comfy pants, and let's have girls' night. The title of this episode, or the topic of this episode rather, is about imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. And that was kind of some of the stuff that I was dealing with too, right? Because the whole reason that I am a life coach, the whole reason that I do this podcast, the whole reason that I do all my posts on TikTok and on Instagram is because I want to help people. I want to help people feel better. I want to help people feel more fulfilled. I want people to live just happier, healthier lives in general without the weight of all the pain that we all experience, right? We all experience these bad things, and I want to be able to help people in that journey. And part of the reason that I had to take a break is because I was really doubting myself, in whether I was actually able to do that for people, able to help people, able to make their lives better. This is something I've actually talked about with my therapist, is that I had this really big fear of making things worse for people, right? Rather than making them better. So that was a big obstacle that I had to overcome in the past year or so. And part of that is also the being seen thing that I mentioned a little bit before, right? When you're a life coach, when you're putting yourself out there for the public on something like a podcast, on Instagram and TikTok, that's a really vulnerable place to be sometimes, right? Because at least from me, I want to show up as vulnerably and as authentically as I can. And that can feel really scary to do that, to put yourself out there in that way. And I think I've always kind of had this fear of being seen. So that's like a deeper wound for me that I work through. But those were two of the major things that popped up for me. And it's kind of funny because like this fear is all over in my astrology chart. My psychic that I work with, my coach, has told me this on a couple different occasions in different ways. But some of my biggest lessons in this lifetime are about overcoming this fear of being seen, allowing myself to be seen, trusting myself and what I have to say, allowing what I have to say to be heard. All of those different things are such big lessons in this lifetime for me. So I think it's kind of funny. And that's why I wanted to do this episode too, because feeling like a fraud and feeling that like imposter syndrome is what everybody calls it. I think it's something that we all experience at least once in our life, right? That's a generalization, I know. But I think it's fair to say that because there's always going to be situations where we feel like how the heck did I get here, you know? So I think a really good way to actually start the podcast before I get into it is to define what imposter syndrome actually is. So I looked it up. I'm looking at my notes right now. If you're watching, we'll rather ask ChatGPT to give me kind of like a definition of what imposter syndrome is. Come for me if you want to for using ChatGPT instead of Google, but here we are. So imposter syndrome, according to ChatGPT, is a psychological pattern where someone doubts their abilities, accomplishments, or worthiness of success despite external evidence proving that they are competent. They often fear being exposed as a fraud, even when others recognize their skills and achievements. So you just think that you're not fucking cut out to be where you are, right? Even if you have put in all the work, even if it was easier for you, you don't think that you belong in the room that you are standing in, basically is what imposter syndrome says. And there's a lot of things that kind of lead into imposter syndrome, right? I think one of the main drivers is this hyper criticalness of yourself, and that it's kind of like perfectionism as well, expecting yourself to be perfect. And when you aren't showing up perfectly, you kind of have this sense of, I don't belong here because I didn't do this perfectly. Which, as I say it out loud, like, it's probably like, yeah, like, that's crazy. Like, of course you deserve to be there. Nobody is going to be perfect. But that's one of the things I feel like leads to it. Also, overanalyzing, your self-criticism again, kind of this fear of failure. One of the big things too that kind of leads to imposter syndrome is this, we all kind of tend to have this image in our mind of what things are going to feel like, what things are going to be like, what we're going to be like when we achieve certain things, whether it's a job promotion or a certain relationship or something with your family or some personal achievement that you're going after. We all kind of have this expectation of what it's going to do for us or how it's going to make us feel. And sometimes that is the exact thing that is causing the imposter syndrome, because you, this whole time working up to this thing, you have idealized it, right? You have put it up on a pedestal. So you are comparing yourself, now that you actually have achieved it, to this idealized version that you had in your head. And my guess is, if you're feeling this, it doesn't line up, right? Maybe you expected yourself to be like a completely different person or whatever. It's that comparison, not just to the idealized version in your head, but to the other people who have achieved the same thing, that is causing the imposter syndrome, right? And I think the comparing ourselves to someone else is also a really significant part here, but this is also something that we have control over, because from the outside, sure, maybe it looks like those people that you are looking up to have it all figured out, have it all together, but the truth is they don't. Even the people who you think have it all figured out, like, they have their issues. They have stuff that they're still working through. They have stuff that they're still working on. And to be honest, we're all faking it a little. You know, like, fake it till you make it is a phrase for a reason. Like, we're all faking it a little. And maybe some people are faking things in bigger ways than other people, but you have to stop comparing yourself to others, because you don't know actually what's going on the inside or behind the scenes. You're just seeing the version that they are choosing to show you at that time. So for those of you that don't know, yes, I'm a life coach, but I also work in sales. So I do tech sales. I've done it for a really long time. And recently I got a new job working for a wellness company. So it's wellness tech. So basically, when you're an employee and your employer offers like these wellness benefits, our technology is what's powering it in the background. So when you have one of those incentive programs where you get prizes for completing your annual exam, for doing the steps challenges, for doing all that kind of stuff, that's what this technology does, right? It handles all of that kind of stuff, which is actually really cool. And it's something that I really jive with. But for this job, we had our company kickoff event. If you're familiar with sales, usually there's what we call like a sales kickoff. So that's when everybody involved in sales gets together in person. It's this big meeting where you go over annual goals, you go over commission, you go over how all the different teams are working together and what all those different objectives are. But at this company, because it's a little bit smaller, we did a whole company kickoff, right? So every single person in the company came and met in person, which was really fun. But at this kickoff event, I met I met so many impressive people there. All of these really impressive people were also extremely humble. And I think when you like look at somebody, and this is kind of off topic, but when you look at somebody and they've done all these really amazing things and they're still really humble about it, I think that's when like true confidence kind of comes into the room, because they let their achievements speak for themselves, right? Like they don't have to be in your face about it. They're just there. Anyways, they were really humble. So these people, I'm good at sales myself, and these people are people that have closed like 10, 15, 20 million dollar deals, 20 million, which is crazy. Like that's a huge deal. I've never ever in my like career with sales ever closed a deal anywhere near that big. And so at this company kickoff, I was surrounded by all these really impressive people, not just on the sales team, on the other teams too. But obviously I spent a lot of time with the sales team because that was my team. I had this moment, or really like more than one moment. I had kind of this like underlying feeling after a little bit of feeling like a total fraud. I felt like I didn't belong there in the same room as all these people who did all these really impressive things, who sold deals that were so much bigger than the deals that I had ever sold. But the thing is, sure, I felt like I didn't belong there for a little bit, but I did belong there. And if you feel like you're a fraud in some area of your life right now, that means that you belong there too, truly. Because if you feel like a fraud, that means that you are about to catapult into the highest stage of growth that you have ever felt, because that means you are about to skyrocket somewhere that you have never imagined, because you made it into the room. You are surrounded by all of the people, these really impressive people doing really impressive things that you now get to collaborate with. And these people are more impressive than you ever thought possible. But here's the thing, like, since you are also in that room, that means you are more impressive than you could ever possibly think as well. And so it's time you start acting like it and owning that. I think it's actually a really big blessing to feel like a fraud. Obviously, it doesn't feel good to be like, what the fuck am I doing here? But it is such a blessing, because when you are the stupidest person in the room, that means you are surrounded by people who have, sorry, that's Rufus. Hold on. Sorry about that. Since it's such a nice day outside today, I have my door open with the like glass like screen door thing open, so Rufus is just barking at somebody walking by. I swear that's Rufus and Kiwi's favorite activity, is monitoring the neighborhood to make sure no one steps in front of the house, but here we are. Anyways, what I was saying, when you are the stupidest person in the room, that is such a blessing, because you are surrounded by people who have already been there, who have already done that, and more than likely want to bring you to the top with them too. And that's the experience that I've always had. That when there are people that are, I don't want to say above you, but farther along the path than you are, they want to bring other people there too. Obviously, you're going to have to take initiative to get there, because they don't want to like drag along dead weight. But if you're willing to put in the work, those people are willing to take you there with them, And the most valuable thing that you can do, that you can have, if you are going on a new adventure, or if you are going down a new path into unfamiliar territory, is to have a mentor who has been there before, and by surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you are. Because those people, when they are smarter than you are, when they have been there before, they have made all the mistakes. You don't have to repeat the same mistakes that they did if you're willing to listen. And they have so much to share. And from my experience, those people want to pass along that knowledge to the next person because those people probably also had a mentor that helped them along. That's kind of how it works, right? That's how we get this thing going. But you have such a great opportunity in front of you to learn, and to learn a lot very quickly if you are open to being that person. And so I want to end the episode with a few little tips for how to kind of overcome this imposter syndrome that you might be feeling. So I'm going to do just kind of a quick fire on these. So the first one is to romanticize yourself and romanticize your life, romanticize your achievements, romanticize everything that you have done. When you think of a fairy tale, the main characters deserve to be where they are, and so do you. The second one, stop humbly dismissing compliments. I know that it can be awkward at first. I'm the queen, or I was the queen, of not knowing how to take a compliment when somebody complimented me. But they're complimenting you because they want to compliment you. Like, no one is going to fucking compliment you if they don't actually believe what they are saying. They're just going to stay quiet, especially in the way that at least society in America is today. Like, people are definitely going to stare at their phone instead of complimenting you if they don't feel comfortable enough to compliment you, right? So when somebody compliments you, instead of saying, oh, I just got lucky, or it's not a big deal, like, oh yeah, thanks, just be like, thank you. I worked hard on it and I'm really proud of it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I put a lot of thought into what I was wearing today. Anything like that, just say thank you. And that's it. You do not have to downplay yourself. You do not have to downplay your achievements or what you're doing. Just accept it. And when people recognize it, accept it. And then on that same note, I keep what I call a brag bank. So you can keep this in a journal, you can keep it in your notes app on your phone, you can even like email it to yourself. But essentially, if you're struggling with imposter syndrome and you're struggling with confidence too, this will help with that as well. Keep a journal every single time that somebody compliments you or says something good about you or gives you like a testimonial about an achievement or just about yourself. Write them all down, because in those moments where you're feeling blech and where you're questioning yourself and where you're going through the self-doubt, you can look back on that as a little mood booster, right? And as a reminder for like, oh yeah, I'm here for a reason. I did this for a reason. These are all things that I have accomplished, and these are all things that other people have recognized me accomplishing as well. Excuse me. And then I want you to kind of think, to when you have kids. If you already have kids, think of one of your kids. If you don't ever want kids, maybe think of just like a child that you really love. So maybe you have a niece or a nephew that you really love, anything like that. I want you to pretend that they are standing in front of you, and I want you to say the things to them, that imaginary person, that you are saying to yourself. In all likelihood, you're not going to do it because that is crazy to think that to a child we would say, no, you're not good enough for that. Like, you're never going to make it. Like, how could you think that you could ever possibly get there? We would never say that to a kid. So why are you saying it to yourself? And then I want you to embrace the mantra of why not me? So when you're in the room, when you're doubting yourself, when things get a little hard, I want you to say, why not me? When you're doubting it. Or you could even say, if not me, then who? Because who's to say that somebody else deserves this more than you? Because the fact that you made it into the room means that you deserve to be in the room more than the person that didn't make it into the room, because they have a different room that they deserve to be in. So basically, all in all, just start owning your success. Start owning the fuck out of the fact that you are this awesome, amazing person, and that you bring awesome, amazing things into the world, and that you make a difference to the people around you. It kind of reminds me, it's this song lyric, I think. I think it's a song lyric. I forget where I heard this, But essentially it says, or no, it is a song lyric by Vincent Lima. I went to the Vincent Lima concert in Denver this past week when I'm recording this. So I'm recording this on February 22nd. It was this past week. One of my favorite artists. If you're sleeping on Vincent Lima, like wake up, go listen to his music because he's amazing. But one of his song lyrics, he says, what a shame that you'll never get to meet yourself because you'll never know yourself the way that I do. Or something like that. But that concept like really stuck with me. I don't think those are the exact lyrics. It doesn't sound very musical. But I think that concept really sticks with you because it's true. You never ever get to experience the magic really of meeting yourself for the first time the way that a total stranger does. So I want you to picture every once in a while, you don't have to do it every day. I just want to picture you meeting yourself as you are right now. And as you do that, I think you're going to see all the little sparks in just who you are as a person. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that, but just remember, y'all are bad bitches and start acting like it. Okay, bye, love you. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, then go ahead and subscribe so you get updates with us every week. You can also follow us on Instagram at KRC Coaching. If you're interested in working one-on-one, then go ahead and visit our website, krccoaching.com, to book your first 30-minute session for free. All right, thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Bye.